Greetings to you all, the pioneer viewers from a new day and a new report. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. Today we're going to discuss with the latest developments in the war. I'm talking, of course, about the Russian-Ukrainian war. Although the front line has established, fighting is still ongoing and certainly remains in the most of the regions. We can say that the Ukrainian troops largely continue to use the techniques of the area defense. On the other hand, Russian armed forces continue their activities to expand their dominance. There are intense attacks carried out by the Russian troops. Of course, Russian air forces have a great impact on the intensity of these attacks. Failure to break this air activity may cause some problems for Ukraine. In addition, the Ukrainian army, like the Russian army, needs to take active aviation actions. So what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. In addition, your support by using the super thanks button below the videos is of a great importance for the continuation of this reporting activity. Thank you in advance for your support. Let's start if you are ready. The Pioneers reporting. Yes, we start today's map report by analyzing the latest developments on the Zaporizhzhia front line. First of all, let us state the following. We also mentioned in our previous map reports, the struggle between the Ukrainian armed forces and the Russian armed forces is experiencing a kind of pause on the Kherson front line. Marine infantry units of the Ukrainian armed forces have still maintained a dominance in the positions they captured from the Russian army. Few and routine clashes continue to take place. Apart from this, there are no significant developments. Therefore, we will not cover the developments on the Kherson front line in this report. We'll start with the developments on the Zaporizhzhia front line. According to the latest reports, the Russian armed forces continue to pressure the Ukrainian armed forces stations in the vicinity of the village of the Robotny from the west and south. However, all attempts to attack failed. The defense forces of the Ukrainian armed forces, including artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces, managed to repel the attacks of the Russian armed forces. In response to the attacks of the Russian armed forces, the Ukrainian armed forces tried to advance in the Verbov region. Intensive attacks, including by the Ukrainian artillery units, took place in these areas. However, the Ukrainian armed forces also failed to make any gains in this region. Looking at the latest reports, we can't say that there has been any changes in the border line in the region. Let's continue with the artillery attacks in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Ukrainian positions in Orikhiv, Novodanilivka, Malaya Tokmakcha, and Novoandriivka and Petyakhati directions. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces in the direction of Zverbov, Novoprokopivka, Ichenko, Solotka Balka, Pechyani, and Kopani. Let's continue our report by looking at the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, on the Donetsk front line, the Russian armed forces continue to attack Novomykhailovka from the south and southeast in order to level the front line and cut the Ukrainian armed forces silent. You can see this area on the map. Cutting the bulge here is of great importance for the Russian army. However, we believe that the Ukrainian armed forces have significant forces to thwart this effort by the Russian forces. Moreover, after the actual capture of Marinka, the Russian armed forces are concentrating their efforts on the attacks of Pobeda. There is also strong Ukrainian fortifications in this area. Therefore, the Russian armed forces will not have an easy task in this area either. We see that the defensive positions of the Ukrainian armed forces is working. Ukrainian armed forces are protecting their positions to a great extent. There are no border changes in the region. There are also areas where the Russian armed forces are making progress. According to the latest reports, offensive units of the Russian armed forces managed to advance in Nevlesky. There, the Ukrainian armed forces have made a tactical retreat. We also see that the Russian armed forces attacked in the industrial zone southeast of Avdiivka, the Stepnoe area, and near Berdyachi. In the Berdychi sector, the Russian armed forces made limited progress. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Ukrainian positions in the direction of Avdiivka, Lastyochny, Severini, Permyvsky, and Krasnohorivka and Horlivka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces in the directions of Staromikhailivka, Lozovo, Velid, Nipetsky, Opetny, and Vasilievy. Let us continue our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Bakhmut front line. We have already mentioned that the fighting in these areas has established in recent days. We see that the Ukrainian armed forces have been able to stabilize the situation to a large extent in this region. The Ukrainian armed forces had been in a withdrawal phase here for some time. This withdrawal was tactical. The Ukrainian armed forces have withdrawn some of their troops to protect the positions in Avdiivka. The result in the weakening of the Ukrainian positions. Therefore, we have seen a limited advance of the Russian troops here. According to the latest reports, units of the Russian armed forces continued offensive operations, especially north of the Bakhmut front line. We see that the Russian troops carried out attacks around the Khoromov and Bogdanivka. However, in the vast majority of these attacks, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to repel these attacks. On the other hand, the Russian armed forces carried out attacks on the dominant hills around Klishchivka. However, these attacks were largely repelled by the Ukrainian armed forces. Let us continue by mentioning the artillery activities in the region. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery units targeted Ukrainian positions in the vicinity of the Khoromov, Bogdanivka, Klishchivka, and Andriivka. On the contrary, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Russian positions in the vicinity of the Opetny, Odraliivka, Kordomoivka, and Yahidny. Let us now consider the latest developments on the Luhansk front line. According to the latest reports on the Luhansk front line in Sherbyansky forested area southeast of Dibrova, the fighting between the Russian armed forces and the Ukrainian armed forces continued. The Russian armed forces carried out attacks in the direction of Turniv, near Klishchivka and Sinkivka. Despite all the fierce fighting, the borderline in the region has not changed significantly. What do you think? Do you think Ukrainian troops will be able to maintain their defense lines? How do you assess the attempts of the Russian troops to advance? Do you think the Ukrainian armed forces will be able to stop the Russian offensive? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.